Welcome to Bricks Over Sticks week one. We are going to jump in pretty quickly here into the course material. Now, what we've got going on here in week one, focus really is going to be all about developing some of the time management and routines that are going to help set you up for success over the next 90 days. So, as with everything else, this is all going to be very small, very bite-sized, probably nothing that you're going to be super shocked by when it comes to routines. Everybody has probably seen most of the recent science when it comes to the things that set you up for a good day and the things that set you up for a rough day. So we are going to talk through some of that, but first, want to make sure that you had a chance to watch the introduction video. Now, this video is not essential by any stretch, but there are a few things that will be helpful if you have the chance to go through that, specifically finding a mentor. So in this course, we are not going to be talking state-specific forms. For example, I live here in Colorado. Our contract is over 20 pages long. I know that most states are not that long, so I know my contract really well, but I am not an expert at all in your contract, your market, any of those things that are going to be specific to you. So with that in mind, highly recommend finding a mentor, somebody who has been in the business for a while, you like the way they do business, you respect them, and they're open to being there as a resource to answer questions and to help you out with some of those basics when it comes to, what form do you use? What's the wording to use? Those kinds of things. Most of the time that person will probably be in your brokerage, though depending on how your brokerage is set up, that may or may not be the best option. So with that in mind, you may need to look outside of your brokerage to find that person to look up to have that person as a resource. But yes, having that boots on the ground, experienced person who's going to be able to speak directly to your forms, your market, the tools that are used in your market, those are going to be very specific questions to ask them. Get a whiteboard. So everybody knows that we should probably have goals that we're working towards, but you stand a far greater chance of actually achieving what it is that you want if you are writing down your goals, and then take it a step further, get a whiteboard, put that out where you are going to be able to see it on a regular basis. So it doesn't have to be huge, but definitely over the next 3 months, the next 90 days, as we're working together, what is it that you are after? The one thing that, at the end of the 90 days, we're really after. That could be, having a closing. That could be X number of people in your pipeline. That could be a marketing goal that you're wanting to really hit. Could be several of those things. But I would say don't overwhelm yourself. Take 2 or 3 things that really over the next 90 days, everything that we're going to be doing, working together, is going to get you to that end result that you're after. And then finally, creating a free Canva account. So within the course itself, this introduction video, there are links beneath that where you can actually just click in. If you don't have a Canva account already, totally free to use. And all of the materials that I'm going to be providing over the next 90 days, those will all be editable in Canva. They're pretty much going to be set up. You shouldn't have to change much of anything. They will be branded with your brokerage's colors, but things like putting in your headshot, putting in your information, those kinds of things will need you to be able to get in there and adjust those files. So without further ado, that is all of the introduction stuff. And now week one. Okay. So one of the biggest things that most real estate agents don't recognize as they're going through school, as they're getting their license, you really are running your own business. And with that comes the responsibility and also the flexibility of having all of this time at your disposal. You get to choose what it is that you want to spend your time on. You get to choose what you don't want to spend time on, but it is a double-edged sword because you're also looking at it from the standpoint of, oh my word, now I've got so many hours every day, all this time. What am I going to do to fill it? Most of the time, what happens is not a whole lot of forward progress is made in that whole bunch of hours that you now have in front of you. So if you have ever worked a regular job before, if you will, like you've got a time you're supposed to be there, you've got a time that it ends, you show up, you do your job, and you're able to clock out. When you're running your own business, obviously that structure is not externally imposed on you unless you are part of a brokerage where, some of those rules apply. But with that in mind, it does mean that now you have to be able to look at your day, your week, and you have to figure out how it is that you are going to spend those hours so that in the end, you're actually, again, moving closer to those goals, those end results that we're after. So recognizing right off the bat that you are in control of your time, knowing that it does mean that you get to do what you want. It also means that you've got to be able to know how to spend that time best. We're going to talk specifically about some of the personal routines that are probably going to help, and some of that's going to include, how you're starting your day, how you're ending your day, the work day in between. We'll talk work routines, and then we'll wrap it all up towards the end. I should also say that each of these sections I am going to be breaking up into smaller videos so that within the course you can go specifically to an area that you want to look at or review without having to go through and watch this whole entire video and scrub through trying to find your spot. So deciding where your time goes. This honestly is one of the biggest challenges for new agents. How do you actually productively spend your time? Again, if you're used to clocking in at a job, that structure is already there. That structure is outside of you. And all you have to do pretty much is show up. You don't even really have to think about much of anything besides just being there when you're supposed to be there, getting through the day, and being able to clock out when the day's done. So within the structure of just a normal day, what does that need to look like so that you're productively spending your time? Because we all know people who are plenty busy, but at the end of the day, don't have much to show for it. And unfortunately, that is the way that a lot of agents end up approaching their day. They're busy, but pretty much they're busy chasing their tail. So we want to avoid that. We want to actually make the progress that is going to take us from here to where you want to get to. So it is a totally different paradigm than your typical 9 to 5. That's true for pretty much any entrepreneur, but specifically within real estate, you've got probably even more flexibility. And on top of that, you've got a really odd schedule. So you are working with people who are working during the day. So now this usually means that your evenings could potentially be way busier because that's when they might have time to communicate, to go on showings, all of those details. And their weekends are their free time. So during the week, you probably won't have a ton of face-to-face with clients, but the weekend is when, those showings are going to be happening. For your buyers, it's going to be the time when people are going to be walking through houses with their agents if you've got listings. And so now you're going to be fielding those phone calls over the weekend for all of your listings. So just recognizing that you are not within that 9 to 5 box, and then also that you've got a very odd schedule. This means that if you were to treat your job like something that you got up and you were at work at 9, and then you just kept going through the evening until who knows when, you are going to end up working a ridiculous amount. You're not going to have space and time to actually rest. And so that's another pit to just watch out for, is that pendulum swing of, oh my gosh, I have nothing to do. I need to keep myself busy, keeping yourself busy all day, and then like trying to take care of clients during their off hours, which are going to be evening and weekends. So recognizing that, couple different ways that you can look at it. I would highly recommend when you're looking at a month, at a quarter, that you're actually going to go through and say, okay, these are the days that I'm actually going to take off. I am not going to be committed to doing work those days. If you can communicate some of that to the clients that are active, that you're working with, people understand the need to actually take breaks, especially in the society that we're living in right now with everybody being so connected. The chance to actually step back, to not have any Zoom meetings, to be able to just rest, that is going to be important. Real estate is extremely seasonal, so you're going to have ups and downs in your schedule and the busyness level, but knowing that you do not have those baked in weekends like most people probably have, that means that you are going to have to be proactive to actually make sure that some of that rest happens. On top of that, it also means that you might not be busy all day from 9 to 9. So just with that kind of framework and approach to it, we'll be looking at specifically where you can invest your time and ways that you could set up your day so that you are not working 12-hour days, but not getting a whole lot done throughout those 12 hours. Creating boundaries to your day. So this is another one. Working for yourself, working from home, all of these things have a fantastic part of them. Like, you've got flexibility that is amazing. And at the same time, it can very quickly be something where work bleeds into and ends up running all of your life. And so by actually putting some boundaries on your day, you're going to be happier and healthier for it. By communicating some of those boundaries to your clients, they're going to have a clear idea of when they can hear from you, when they can expect to get a call back, those kinds of things. So with that in mind, boundaries in general, not always an easy thing to figure out, but they will make your life, your business, a whole lot more livable and enjoyable. A couple different points here. So confusion, confusion breeds busy work. Confusion, lack of clarity, not being entirely sure what it is you should be doing. That's some of what we're going to be talking through today. And if you can get some clarity on that, then you know, okay, these are the things that I'm setting out for myself every morning. This is what it's going to look like to the best of my ability. And then from that point, you've got flexibility the rest of the day. So by taking some really specific, focused actions at a set period of time, that now frees you up to where you've got hours that you could spend resting, doing something that you want to do as far as learning, connecting, networking, those kinds of things. So your whole day does not need to be you staring at a screen, you playing phone tag, you putting out fires for everybody. Like, there's a lot of different ways that you can manage that so that the important stuff is always happening, and then you've got that flex time. Making time for clients, obviously alluded to this a couple of points back. Yes, your clients are pretty much the lifeblood of your business. You have to have clients in order to have closings, and you have to have closings in order to have commission checks. So with that in mind, there definitely is that progression. You have to have those clients, but again, you do not have to be at the beck and call and answering text messages or picking up the phone at 9 o'clock at night. Again, this goes back to that boundaries idea. So finding that place for those clients, understanding how it's going to work best for you. Who knows? 9 o'clock might be your cutoff time. For me, it definitely would not be. I would have to move that back a few hours. You know, my work day, people can get a hold of me up until this point. If it's after that point, you know, I'll give you a call the next day by noon. That kind of framework in your mind, being able to communicate that to those clients, means that you can make time for them, but at the same time, it's not ruining or running your entire life. So with all of those points in mind, we are going to first kind of take a look at what it's going to take to implement this idea of a routine. If you're familiar at all with Atomic Habits, James Clear is that author. He sends out a newsletter every week, and this particular tip was in one of them recently. And essentially, what he's got here is he's setting up an environment, both mentally and physically, so that you've got a container for all of the important stuff to actually fit into. And what he's talking about here is probably not that unfamiliar to you. You may or may not know the term decision fatigue. And essentially that is, if you are having to make decisions constantly, your brain only has so much capacity to continue to make decisions and to continue to make good decisions. So with that in mind, what James is saying here, quick and easy tip for building habits that last: pick a standard time and place to do it. So you aren't having to think about all of those details. Like if you've got a desk, awesome. You sit down at your desk and you just regulate your flow, your workflow, your mental flow, so that when you're in this place, that's, at this time, this is what's going to be happening. So you've got your time, your place, and then the outcome, or what it is that you're going to be working on. It's easier to wake up, as he says, knowing I exercise at 4 p.m. than to decide each day when to fit that into your day. So if you want to turn something into a habit so that you're not having to think as hard and you are actually executing quickly and efficiently, then this idea, this concept of having a set time, again, that standard time and place to do these things, it is going to make a difference. Your brain is not going to have to work nearly as hard. You're not going to feel like you're forgetting things, etc. If it's already decided, all you need to do is show up. So once again, going back to that idea, set time, set place, you show up, the magic can happen. So the first piece of that we're going to be talking through is the morning routine. So everybody is all over the map when it comes to morning routines, what you have to fit in, what you shouldn't bother with, etc., etc. If you remember from the initial webinar where I introduced that concept of people have routines, whether they recognize them or not. Some of them are great, some of them not so great. Picking up your phone and scrolling email first thing when you open your eyes, not the best way to start your day, probably mentally, for sure. And then you've also got, the good routines. So making sure that you get up and you drink a glass of water or whatever it is that you do first thing. It does not have to be rigid. It does not have to be something that somebody else has concocted. It truly can be what works for you. But just think for a moment about what it is that you do every morning, kind of without thinking. And then think about it from the standpoint of, is that the optimal way for you to actually start your day? You may have 90% of your morning, it's streamlined, what happens. You're, again, not having to think about it because you just do it. But there may be one or two small things that you might decide, hey, I want to add this, or hey, it would make my morning better if I stopped doing this. So when it comes to that morning routine, it really will set the tone for the rest of your day. I always recommend go minimal. Do not try and cram everything under the sun into your routine. It doesn't need to be that way unless you feel comfortable with adding a whole bunch of different steps to your routine. A few different things that I do recommend consistently, though: moving your body. Find a way to, whether that's a walk, whether that's watching yoga videos on YouTube, whatever it is, finding a way to move. Doesn't have to be a ton, but just getting that blood flowing in the morning, usually a big help. Spending time reflecting. So for some people, that's meditation. For some people, that's going to be journaling. There are plenty of apps out there. I will link a few of them in the course itself so that you can actually take advantage of some of that if you haven't up to this point. It does help to just kind of level set the morning, where you are taking a few minutes, just you, before the craziness starts, just chill, just be quiet. Most of the time, if you're able to actually calm your mind before you jump into the fray, it's going to make a difference in the way that you're able to handle whatever gets thrown at you during the day. And then finally, the third thing that, again, the studies that show the difference between people who are actually able to achieve their goals and those who struggle to do so, the biggest difference is they write them down. And then the next step to that is reviewing them consistently. We've all set New Year's resolutions. And if it's not something that you've written down and it's not something that you go back and look at, it's probably not going to do you a whole lot of good. You're not going to remember it, especially if it's something that you're trying to change. We don't do change on autopilot. So with that in mind, make sure that you're actually reviewing what it is that you're working towards, what it is that you want to achieve long term, but then also what are the smaller steps that you've put in place for yourself to be able to achieve day by day. So a few things that you can look at for ways to start your day. So talked about a few things that you probably don't. Hitting the snooze button multiple times, yeah, not the best idea. If you listen to Mel Robbins, her 5-second rule, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, just get up and do it. So the alarm, that's one way to overcome that aspect of it. The other aspect of that is waking up at a consistent time and going to sleep at a consistent time. Both of those definitely help when it comes to being able to regulate that sleep cycle and not be quite as tempted to hit that snooze button. So that would be one thing to avoid. Starting your day off with emails, texts, those kinds of things. That's everybody else's agenda and everybody else's fire drill. And you're going to be dealing with that for the rest of the day. So taking some time earlier in the morning, just so you can level set your mind, physically make sure that you are at your best. All of those kinds of things are going to be better if you don't start your day scrolling social media or jumping into emails and text messages first thing. But some of the things that you might consider including in your routine, obviously breakfast, coffee, water, whatever it is that you do in the morning, making sure that that is something you're actually making time for. Meditation, prayer, reflection, again, that's kind of that quiet, just a few minutes of it. And again, like everything that you're seeing here, don't feel like it needs to be a full 30-minute routine that you do for every single one of these. Like at that point, you are so many hours into your day, you're probably going to feel behind. So 5 minutes, 10 minutes, just make sure that you are fitting these in and ideally fitting these in a consistent pattern. Obviously movement, especially if you are someone who loves working out, you know the benefits of all of that. But when it comes to, a hard workout, you may decide to do that consistently at a different time of day. But even just doing stretching, yoga, a walk, whatever it is that just gets you moving to start your day, is going to be a bonus. Obviously, showered, dressed, those kinds of things. There are going to be days where you do work in your pajamas. Probably not the best practice. So it can happen, definitely. No law against it. Just make sure it doesn't become the norm. Obviously, reviewing the plans that you've got for the day, what it is that you want to achieve by the end of the day, actually having an outcome that you're working towards, it can definitely just help with that motivation. You've got something that you can bring your focus back to. That's what we're after, is just these small things that are going to be able to move you forward bit by bit. And then finally, deep breathing, box breathing, what have you, something to get the oxygen really moving through your body. That can go along with any movement that you're doing, but these would be just different pieces that if you wanted them, these could definitely fit into your basic morning routine. Some practical tips, put it on your calendar. It is so easy to schedule and book and overpromise and stretch ourselves when it comes to some of these things and our schedule. So with that in mind, if you block out, that first hour, hour and a half of your day where it's like, okay, this is the way that I'm going to start my day because it's going to set me up for success for the rest of the day, putting it on your calendar makes it so it's going to be a little bit harder to book anything else during that time. So put it on your calendar, set alarms on your phone. Doesn't have to be a permanent thing, but enough to just remind you of, oh yeah, this is what I'm supposed to be doing in the next 5 minutes. Those kinds of reminders can definitely help. There are tons of apps out there. If you wanted to go that route, I would say keep it simple as possible. Most of the time, that's going to be just putting it on your calendar and putting an alert so that you are reminded, so that it shows up and reminds you, hey, this is what's supposed to be happening. Start small. So alluded to this a couple of slides ago. Add one thing this week. Do not try and totally revamp your schedule. You'll probably stick with it for 2 or 3 days and then things will start slipping and then you'll be frustrated and then you'll lose motivation and then nothing will be happening and you'll just fall back into your old patterns and habits. So if there is something that you want to change, if there is something that you want to add or delete from your current way that you start your day, take one thing. This week, just do that one thing. Whatever happens, that one thing you are going to commit to and stay consistent. Once that one thing feels like it's not quite so much of an obstacle, add the next thing. So you can do this week by week. You could do this every 2 weeks, however this needs to look like. Again, remember, we are trying to take you in 90 days to that consummate professional who's got the business or is headed in that direction of having the business that you want. So with that in mind, we are not trying to race through and cram everything into this first week. But I want you to focus on, okay, what is the one thing that would make the biggest difference this week? Put that down, commit to it, make that happen, and then next week, take a look at, okay, what would be that next thing that you're going to do? You don't have to do everything. Please don't try. And really, this concept is giving you the opportunity to start every day on your terms. You are not having to start it in reaction mode to everybody else's crazy. You can just start it saying, hey, these are the things that are going to set me up for success. This is the way that my body needs to feel. This is the way my mind needs to feel. And from there, you'll be able to accomplish a whole lot more than if you start the day in a mad scramble. So that's kind of the emphasis of this whole concept with the morning routine. Again, small things. Choose one this week that you're going to add or delete, and then we'll keep building on that. And that morning routine is going to move us directly into then the way that your workday is going to flow. So with a work routine, we are looking at, okay, you don't have a boss telling you to sit down at your desk at 9 o'clock and start working. So you have to be your own boss sometimes. This is another one of those where, going back to that quote by James Clear, having a standard place and a standard time that you get started. So, morning routine, you might block out a couple hours to give yourself, the morning to get started. Who knows what other parts of life are going to be part of your morning. If you've got kids, obviously that changes the dynamic in a huge way. But with your work routine, what we want to work towards is having that, okay, at this time, and I'm going to use 9 o'clock. You may or may not decide 9 o'clock's right, but 9 o'clock at your desk, and we're going to start the day. At that point, this is now work time. And if you can stay super consistent and super focused during those morning hours, so from 9 to 12, 9 to 1, however that ends up working for you, you will be able to accomplish probably way more than you would be if you said, okay, this is my work day and it's going to go from 9 to 5. So we're going to try and condense the most important things that need to happen every single day And then from that point, you can have those hours of margin. So with that in mind, the hour of power, which is really all about communicating, and it's going to be communicating with mostly the people who already know, like, and trust you. So if we don't have all of those people in a central place, then you're probably going to want to do that before we go too much further. So more on that in just a moment. Obviously this morning, so the hour of power, and then working on your business. So that's going to be things like marketing, transaction management, if you've got transactions in place, going through your MLS, those kinds of things. Then the afternoon, you've got the opportunity for education. So webinars, anything along those lines, networking meetings, going to a lunch date, or putting coffee on the schedule with somebody so that you can actually sit down and have that conversation face to face. So all of these things can fit into your day, but it does not have to eat up your entire day. So this is again where if you've got that ability to focus, standard time, standard place, focus for that short stint of time, then you're opening up a lot more ease into your calendar. So this first one, this hour of power, do a deep dive here on what exactly is involved with that and how to go about it. So again, set out a goal for yourself when it comes to like how many conversations you want to have. Now, define conversation for yourself, but essentially what we're looking at is, if we zoom out, conversations are what's going to get you to appointments, whether that's with buyers or sellers. Appointments are then what's going to get you into a client relationship. Having that client is now what's going to get you to those closings. So the number of closings that you do is going to be in direct proportion to the number of conversations that you're actually able to have. With that in mind, we will next week or the week following be going through and looking at how do we actually track this? How do we actually know, okay, I've had 20 conversations, it led to this number of appointments, those appointments turned into this many clients. We will be able to track and get through all of that math, but we want to start with that idea of starts with a conversation. So in this scenario, goal is to have 3 to 5 conversations 5 days a week. You may find that you can do that in less than 10 calls. You may find that it takes 20 calls to actually get in touch with people and have those conversations. Phone conversations are going to be the best right now. They could be some of the hardest just because we live in a world where text messaging is way more engaged than actually having a phone conversation. But a phone call is still going to be your best option when it comes to actually having a productive conversation. You're going to be able to hear a lot more emotion, the inflections in a voice. You're going to be able to more easily navigate those conversations. So it is going to be one of those where it may take a lot, may take just a few calls, but what you are after is those conversations. Could happen in 20 minutes, might take a full 40 to 45 minutes for you to get those. So this hour of power is really, it doesn't have to be, just 60 minutes on the clock. But if you are setting yourself a goal for these are the conversations and the type of conversations that I want to be having during that time, and you hit that goal early, move on to the next thing. There's nothing here. Again, you're the boss of your own time here. There's nothing that says that you have to be on the phone for 60 minutes. If you hit that goal that we're after for those conversations, go ahead, move on to whatever it is that comes next in your day. Phone conversations, again, going to be the priority. Those conversations are going to flow so much easier. It's not going to feel awkward to ask questions. There's probably going to be a natural flow of moving that conversation into a real estate related topic. So with that in mind, phone conversations are the priority, but if you are texting or direct messaging with somebody and there's actual back and forth, that can also be one of those conversations for your goal that day. Ideally, and this is where having all of your people in a central place is going to be a lifesaver for you. If you have a CRM, so a client relationship management software, then what you're going to want is for all of your contacts to end up in that software. The easiest way to do this most of the time is to upload a spreadsheet into that database. Depending on your software, some of them are a little bit easier, some of them do it for you. So if you've got questions on that, definitely reach out. Let me know where you are with putting people into your CRM. But that is the ideal, is to have them in one place so that you can actually keep track of all of the details about them and it doesn't all just stay in your brain. With that in mind, the other option that you've got is to just start scrolling through your phone. You can work through it alphabetically, just start at the A's and work your way down, or you can pick at random if you wanted to, but you probably want some kind of system so that you aren't calling the same people, 2 to 3 times every 90 days while some of your other contacts aren't even getting called once. So find a way to choose how it is that you're going to reach out to people and start working your way through that. You can go to social media and obviously engage in Facebook and Instagram. Back to that DM point back there. So it's one of those where that is an option. Again, that's not really going to get you into conversation as much as it is, just comments back and forth. So knowing that it is going to be easier to have that, face-to-face conversation if possible, but over the phone, text message, DM, those kinds of things are probably going to get you further than just some interaction, liking and commenting on people's posts. That can be part of your marketing strategy for sure, but when it comes to having these conversations, probably not your first point of effort. And then finally, going back to the CRM, this truly is where a ton of power, a ton of time saving, and a ton of automation can happen. So every call and conversation should be logged in your CRM. So you have John Smith, and you go into John Smith's record and you make a note in his record there that says you had a phone call with him on September 7th, and you talked through, a whole bunch of things, found out that his birthday is coming up next week and he's going to Cancun. And so you put that in there. It's an easy thing to circle back with him, find out how his trip to Cancun went. But then, you're also setting a time to follow up with him again. So whether that's a reminder in your CRM, or whether that was, you guys decided to sit down over coffee because he's interested in finding a new place. All of those kinds of things can happen in that CRM, and you are not writing it down on a piece of paper and then losing the paper. You're not trying to keep it all in your head and then getting people mixed up. Those kinds of details can all go into one central place. You can set those reminders for yourself so that you are not having to do all of that follow-up just by trying to keep everything in your head. So CRM, every call, log what was important about it. If they've got somebody that they want to refer you to, those kinds of things, that's gold. Make sure that you are putting it in a place where you can come back to it and you are not having to try and just monitor everything by either your phone or your brain. Probably not going to be a great combination just between those two. So within your hour of power, again, 3 to 5 conversations, 5 days a week. that ends up being 15 to 25 conversations. We should be converting X number of those into appointments. Those appointments, again, are what's going to turn you into clients. Phone conversations are top priority. DMs, texts. If you've got a conversation going back and forth, awesome. But make sure that you are actually having a conversation, not just, dialing the phone or sending a text message and hearing crickets back. Work through in some sort of fashion, some sort of system, work through contacting people. And then when it comes to social media, you can get in there, be social, have fun, connect with people, but that is probably the least priority when it comes to actually having these conversations. And then remember, you want to log those conversations. You want to log the important data points, the important conversation pieces that you had, and then make sure that you are following up with them at a set time. All right, morning work hours. So we're going to go into depth a little bit more with this during the webinar, the initial webinar, kind of charted out a rough idea of, these are the things that you should be doing as a real estate agent, but I'm going to look at this at a deeper level here. So morning work hours. So we've gone through our morning personally, and we haven't gotten sucked into social media. We haven't gotten sucked into our email. All of those things will be waiting for you, but if you give yourself to start the day calmly and on your terms, you're setting yourself up for a lot better day. So that's your morning. And then again, doesn't have to be 9 o'clock for you, but I'm going to use 9 o'clock. Sit down at your desk. And what are going to be the first things that you do? Everything that I've got on here is an important part of your job, but it doesn't necessarily have to go in this order. So if you know that you are going to be able to connect with people, your people, at 9 o'clock, but once you get into 10 or 11 o'clock, you're probably not going to get as many responses, then start with that hour of power. Start by making those calls, by sending those text messages, by having those conversations. But it might work a little bit better to actually start in your MLS. So the MLS is where all of the data about your market is going to be the most recent. You are going to want to get in there on a daily basis and essentially go through and just look at a few different things. So you might have hot sheets in your MLS, and you can tell it what it is that you want to see. So that could be listings that happened overnight. That could be sales that happened. That could be, something about a particular property that you've been watching. But getting in there and actually looking through, okay, what is it that is going to be relevant to people when I'm having some of these conversations? What's happening in my MLS? And then what do I have to actually be able to share that's going to be of value? If you know that you're going through the B's in your phone, and you're going to be calling through the B people, and you have your Uncle Bill, and you know that he's got questions about upsizing or downsizing, then one of the things that you could specifically be looking at is, okay, what is going on with houses as far as square footage? Which ones are going faster? What is on the market that might actually fit some of that criteria? So actually knowing your people and what's going to be important to them can help you focus on what to pay attention to when it comes to jumping into the MLS. We're not looking at data just for the sake of data. We're looking to build your expertise, and we're looking to be able to provide value to the other people that you're going to be having conversations with. There will be a worksheet following a lot of this that's going to specifically go into, okay, here would be the things to just constantly check when it comes to your MLS. That next step, having those conversations, that hour of power where we are talking with folks, you are picking up that phone, you're having conversations, you're logging them in your CRM. I'll have a few scripts for you that are going to be fairly straightforward. It does not have to be an awkward thing, and it can be a very natural flow, especially if that person that you're speaking with knows that you're in real estate. At that point, they're probably going to be asking, hey, what about, or what's going on in the market, or how's work for you? At that point, that is where you now have an opening to start sharing some of what's happening most recently, because you were just in the MLS and you know that stuff. So that hour of power, specifically those conversations, if you do this consistently, it is very, very predictable. You will start to see that there are patterns. The calls that you had 30 days ago, now those people are under contract. Those people that are under contract 30 days later, they're going to be closing. But if you keep this consistent contact and these consistent conversations happening, now we're not going through these seasons where it's like, okay, I talked to a ton of people and now I'm so slammed with work that I have no time to talk to people. So you end up with a drought and there's nobody in your pipeline. So you go back to talking to people. If you're able to just break this down to saying, hey, I want to have this many conversations every single day, now you've given yourself a very manageable piece of work that you can just take action on consistently, even if it's just 30 minutes a day. Go through, do it, and you will see those compound results happening. Marketing. We will be spending a ton of time talking about specific marketing tactics, but for now, one of probably the easiest things to do is going to be to either set up an email drip campaign that is going to go out and just contact your people on a regular basis automatically. If you need assistance with setting that up, let me know. We will be providing some email templates that you can customize so that it's very specific to you. It doesn't feel like it's a robot talking. But an email drip campaign, a text campaign, both of those are really fantastic when it comes to being able to just reach out to people on a consistent basis. They'll be getting those, and then when you give them a call, it's going to pave the way for some of those conversations a little bit easier. So email, text campaigns, again, in your CRM, pretty much every CRM out there has a way to automate those. So again, let me know if you need some assistance with that. That's what this whole program is about. Social media is another one. Now, the challenge with social media is that it is a black hole most of the time. So you need to be very specific with what it is that you want to do on social media. And the other aspect of that is recognizing that posting is one thing, but you are honestly going to see a lot more from your social media efforts if you're engaging with other people. So yes, engage with anybody who engages with you, but go start looking for other people in the community, small businesses, ideal clients, people who are, friends who may have just had, well, I guess it could go both ways. Friends who either are growing their family or empty nesters. Those stages of life are a very key point where people start thinking about their real estate choices, whether that's, moving from renting to owning, whether that's upsizing or downsizing. So you've got the full gamut that can happen there. But understanding that people put a lot of stuff on social media that can kind of give you some insight into where they might be mentally when it comes to having those conversations about real estate. So first of all, don't be weird about it. But by having those conversations, by staying top of mind, by again having that relevant data from your marketplace because you're in your MLS, you can now talk more relevantly to what these people might be concerned about. Getting in to a social media strategy, again, is something that is fairly complex when it comes to specifically what is it that you're going to do. Right now, again, just keep it simple. So for this marketing section of working on your business every day, you might decide that 30 minutes of it, that's going to be devoted to, emails, creating that campaign this week, going through and setting up an automated email campaign, or a text campaign, either one. So that could be, 30 minutes, but then the other 30 minutes of your marketing hour, that is going to go directly towards engaging on social media. So you can post something, probably take about 5 to 10 minutes, but then the rest of that time is going to be specifically going and looking for ways that you can engage. Most of the time, you're not going to have people beating down your door just because you put realtor in your bio on Instagram. So with that in mind, don't just try to go out and sell real estate. Make sure that you are still being a human and a social human on social media. So that's all I'm going to say about that. Again, there's going to be some resources for you when it comes to the actual posts and some captions that you can actually use. So there will be a few of those available now. We will be next month when we hit our marketing phase, we're going to be going through and you will have a full month's worth of posts, of captions that you can personalize, so that will help speed some of that up. And again, remember, what you're going for is that engagement. People engaging with you, yes, but make sure that you are really focused on engaging and giving other people the type of engagement that you want yourself. And then finally, transaction management. So if you have buyers or sellers who are under contract, obviously there's going to be pieces of that contract that need to happen. So that's, scheduling inspections. If there are repairs that need to be made, getting with the contractors, figuring out who's going to do that, finding ways to make sure that you are taking your transaction from beginning to end as smoothly as possible. This is, again, where boundaries and having a system is going to come into play. So for transaction management, I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole too deeply, but you might set it up to where, you have a couple of listings and you have told those sellers that every Tuesday you're going to give them an update on what happened over the weekend. What the showings were, etc. You might decide that, if you can set it up within your MLS, you are going to send an update with your buyer's search requests or requirements. So they're going to get that every day, as if there's anything that comes on the market that fits their criteria, and that's going to be the way that they're going to hear from you consistently. You might decide that once a week you're going to actually call and have a conversation with them, or text and have a real conversation. What are they thinking? Make sure that they aren't overwhelmed, or ask, in this price point where they're at, what is it that they're seeing that they're liking? Are they thinking that they need to change their criteria? So just, again, keeping that conversation alive. So the transaction management aspect of this, honestly, does not have to be a huge part unless you've got a large number of transactions, in which case we're probably looking at outsourcing some of that to transaction coordinator. But assuming that you're not there, you're not at that stage, essentially what we want to do is just make sure that you are on top of any dates and deadlines that are part of your contracts, that you're working ahead of those as much as possible, that your communication both with your clients and with the agent on the other side, that all of that is buttoned up. So that's where this transaction management section of your morning can fit in. So that's your morning. Check on what your market is doing. Get into the MLS, know what it is that you want for data points, and then from there, again, set a timer if you need to, but that is what you want to start your day with most of the time. Hour of power. Have those conversations. Again, set that goal 3 to 5 days a week. If you can do that, you are going to start seeing that snowball effect. Make sure that you're logging and setting a follow-up for all of those calls, all of those conversations in your CRM. Marketing happens daily. It's going to, again, have that snowball effect. Choose how you want to spend that time. I would highly, highly recommend not doing anything that is going to cost a lot of money at this point. Not until we've gotten to the point where we've got a foundation, a marketing foundation. So unless you already have, like a postcard campaign going or something like that, I would say hold off on that until you have utilized some of these free resources, primarily email and text. Most of the time through your CRM, it's going to be free. And then social media as well. You don't have to be everywhere on social media, but show up consistently and make sure that you're engaging with other people. And then once the morning has wrapped up, you now have the afternoon. Now, the afternoon might be that time where, every Wednesday afternoon, you decide you're just pretty much going to take it off. Awesome. Do that. Make sure that you are prioritizing getting some rest, getting some relaxation in, because weekends are not going to automatically give that to you. So you've got the opportunity of rest, obviously, but then education opportunities. So webinars, live trainings, online CE classes. You can learn how to do a CMA. You can learn how to navigate your MLS. Like, there are a lot of different things that you could put into this learning category. Relationships. So networking events. Obviously, if you can set some coffee or lunch meetings from those conversations that you have, that's always a beautiful thing. Finding contractors to build relationships with. So especially right now, having a good electrician, a good plumber, a good handyman, having these people that you can fall back on, so that you are not having to scramble and try and find these people in the emergency situation. If you can get ahead of that, absolutely do it. And ideally, you probably want more than one. So one of the things that you could be doing in those conversations that you're having every morning, chatting with people, and if they're a homeowner already, they probably have some people that they would recommend for those particular types of jobs. So that is a great place to get contractor recommendations that isn't necessarily going to come from just, Googling best contractor near me. So that's an option. Again, easy point of conversation to be having. If you know that person on the other end actually has some experience. Aim for in-person, obviously, with relationships face-to-face. In this era of COVID, it can be weird still, but if you've got that option, definitely go for it. If you don't have listings, you can call agents and see if they'd let you hold an open house in their listing. So you, as a buyer's agent, you would want to make sure that this was all very, very clear with the listing agent. But very frequently, that listing agent is busy. If they want to hold an open house, you might be able to be that person who holds it for them. Now you get the opportunity to have those conversations with buyers who are walking through the door. Throwing a good open house is something that is more of an art than most people realize. It doesn't have to be boring. You don't have to be bored out of your mind. You don't have to just waste your time for, the 3 hours that you're going to be sitting there holding that door open. So again, that is something that we can get into depth more. If you've got questions about that right now, definitely let me know. But one of the things that you could be doing with some of those afternoon hours, finding places that you could actually hold an open house, especially if it's in an area or in a product. So whether that's, townhomes or single family homes or what have you that you're particularly interested in selling. Other activities, door knocking. This is one that gets overlooked. Obviously, there's so many opportunities online. The work online, though, is still work. and it takes a decent amount of setting up to get you to the point where your online presence is super strong. So with that in mind, one of the things that you can do to either augment your social presence or to just start breaking in and again having conversations, door knocking. If you're holding an open house, print a flyer and go door knock, that street, that neighborhood, depending on how big it is a perfect reason for you to actually start having conversations with some of those neighbors in those areas. Video walkthrough on listings. So definitely ask for permission when it comes to that listing agent. Most of them aren't going to have a problem with it because it's free advertising for them, but go live on a social platform, whether that's Facebook or Instagram, and just do a walkthrough. HGTV is one of the most popular channels out there for a reason. People love to see houses. They love to see the inside of houses, and especially if there's like a really unique feature, that ability of having that walkthrough, being able to go through and, just take people on that tour, that is an easy way to go live on social media. It's an easy way to get people engaged. I will tell you that a lot of times either super high end or like dumpster fire houses, those are the two where people are probably going to get the most engaged with you. But all that to say, if you aren't on social media, you haven't gone live a lot, this is an easy way to break into that. So afternoon work hours, again, you can rest. There are tons of education opportunities you can take advantage of, build relationships, networking face-to-face whenever possible. If you don't have listings, start going out and seeing if you can hold some open houses. And then you've got a ton of other opportunities when it comes to just pounding the pavement. Go knock some doors, go do a video walkthrough of a house, like just have some fun. People want to know who you are. People end up having a relationship with a real estate agent, not just a transaction. So with that in mind, make sure that you are developing those relationships. So that's your work day. We've kind of talked through the morning, talked through the afternoon. Now the work wind down. This goes back to that concept of boundaries. So you might decide that you are going to work in front of your computer from 9 to 2. Pretty much every day, that is going to be, the time that you're in front of your computer. You're going to be going through and managing your transactions, working on your marketing, having those conversations. And then 2 o'clock rolls around. And if you don't have anything else going on, you're going to check your email, answer any last things, and then you're going to go play pickleball, or you're going to go play frisbee golf, or whatever it is. You're going to do something else that helps you detach from work, which is a whole lot easier said than done. But if you actually have something, for me, right now, I get to 5 o'clock, and at that point, I am going to go start working on dinner. We don't want to be eating at 7 or 7:30, just not what works best for us. And I could literally be working 24 hours a day if I wanted to. I don't really want to, but having that set time at the end of the day, 5 o'clock is 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock hits. I know that I need to be putting my computer down and now turning my attention to fixing dinner. So with that in mind, giving yourself something that is more or less firm, and from that point saying, okay, now I need to turn my attention to this. I'm no longer in work mode. That can be a super helpful way of keeping yourself from being burned out and also giving yourself the opportunity to detach from work. Now, it might be one of those kinds of things where, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock rolls around, and now you actually need to go showing. You've got a buyer who can go see a house this afternoon. So you might at that point, switch gears to now being that buyer's agent. With that in mind, again, some of this is going to have some very flexible boundaries. And yet at the same time, if you've always got flexible boundaries, let's be honest, you have no boundaries at all. So put some of that in place for yourself, you'll find it'll be a little bit easier than to enforce with other people. So again, have some kind of boundary. We talked about it at the beginning of the workday. The end of your workday also should have some boundaries to it, just so you don't end up letting work eat into all of that time that doesn't have to be spent working. Decide when you want to be done with that workday, and it can be flexible, definitely. But part of that is also going to be, when can clients get in touch with you? You know, again, going back to that example earlier, 9 o'clock rolls around. Are you still answering phone calls and texts? Or is it something that you have laid out with folks where it's like, okay, once 8 o'clock hits, you can, give me a call. Please leave me a voicemail. You can text me. I'll be getting back with you the next day, before noon, whatever it is that you want to say. If you actually put some of that into place, now you are not allowing work to literally eat into every moment of every day. So schedule something in the evenings that's going to force you to put work away. Final email check. If it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, final email check, you'll probably check it again, a few hours later. Perfectly fine. Unless you're actually waiting for something to come in, try not to let that email eat up your entire day. Put your availability in your email signature. So when it comes to working with clients, working with other agents, letting them know this is when you can expect to hear from me, that is going to go a long ways towards you then being able to enforce those particular times. And again, setting that expectation with your clients as to when you're going to be available, when they can hear back from you. You put that in place, you don't have to answer every fire drill that comes your way. You can actually put some space between you and the craziness. So in conclusion, we have talked through a lot of stuff, going on a little bit over an hour here. Again, I am going to break this up so you can specifically watch the different videos that are going to pertain to each one of these sections. But to wrap it all up, a few different things. Start small, please, please, please. If you hear anything today, we are not trying to accomplish all of this, and I do not expect all of this to come easy and to just become an automatic habit within the first week or two. But choose, one thing for your personal routine, one thing for your work routine that you are going to do, that you're going to commit to. Stay consistent with that. Once we've built consistency over a week or two, now we can start adding to it. Again, we've got 90 days. We are going to be taking this step by step. We are not looking to sprint through. 90 days is a decent amount of time. We can build a lot in 90 days, but it does take actually having some consistency and some foundations laid from the outset. So start small. Do not try and add everything. Make sure that what you're doing is actually working from you. From there, you can go through and you can start adding on to those foundations you've laid. Accountability is huge. Part of this program is the Q&A calls. So those are going to be held Thursday afternoons. And that is a huge part of it. But if you've got a buddy, if you've got that mentor, if you've got somebody that you can look to have either a mutual or for them to hold you accountable, that will be helpful. Having that external motivation is always a good thing. Most of the time, it's hard to keep our word to ourselves. When you've got to report to somebody else, it makes a difference. So that accountability piece, again, finding a mentor or having a person, a friend who is going to be able to hold you accountable gently. They don't have to be a drill sergeant, but that you can just have that accountability for. Highly recommend it. Commit to a routine for a couple weeks, then make adjustments. So kind of going back to that building step by step, don't go through and try something for a week, only hit it 3 out of 5 days and decide it didn't work and go to something else. Try to go for that longer stretch of, okay, for this week, this is what I want to do. That next week, Second week, stay consistent with it and add something small on top of it. So don't go through jumping from routine to routine to routine. It doesn't have to be perfect, but find one or two things that you want to do, that you want to commit to, and then from there you can more easily go through and actually build from there. But try not to do the scattershot thing. When you miss a day, okay, so this is one of the biggest ones, just because most people, when they fall off of a habit after usually not too long, they just kind of want to throw their hands in the air and say, well, it didn't work. Try not to let that happen. One of the ways that you can let that not happen or avoid it for the most part is, again, starting small. But the other thing is, don't just throw your hands in the air and be done. Choose the next hour or that afternoon or the next morning or next week, whatever it needs to look like, kind of as that reset. Okay, this week didn't go so hot with this particular goal that you were after. What didn't go great? What needs to be tweaked? And then start fresh. Try it again. Get back on that bandwagon. Don't get to the point where you beat yourself up for having missed a day of doing something, and then that gives you an excuse to not do it that second day. That's not what we're after. We want that consistency, but you also have to give yourself a little bit of grace when it comes to being able to deal with real life as it happens as well. Again, some of this is probably going to be new. This level of structure is not something that most agents operate within for themselves, especially. So when it comes to being able to do this, it's probably not going to be beautiful right out of the gate. It's okay. Fall off the bandwagon, pick yourself back up, choose a new starting point, and go again. This is another one. It's attributed to a ton of different people. So I don't know who actually said it, but people tend to overestimate what can be done in 1 year and underestimate what can be done in 5 or 10 years. So the same thing can be true of smaller units of time. So people overestimate what can happen in 1 day or 1 week, but they underestimate what can actually be accomplished in the 90 days that we're going to be spending together. So with that in mind, again, we're going to take this small piece by small piece. Some of this is going to be super easy. Other parts of it is going to be more of a challenge. It's okay. Not everybody is ever going to be working from the exact same starting location. So the places that are easier, use that time to coast a little bit more. When you've got a more challenging aspect of this course that we're going through, we'll double down on that. But for the time being, just remember that this is a 90-day process. We're not trying to accomplish everything in this first week. And in order to remain consistent and not burn out, it is going to take that little by little by little. So finally, really, week 1 homework. So decide on the one thing that you're going to do for your morning routine. Commit to that hour of power. Decide on the one thing that you're going to do for your work wind down routine. Again, do not expect this to be perfect, but if you can go through and do those 3 things and do them for the most part consistently, you will start to see some of that flow starting to develop. Bonus, if you're feeling especially adventurous, find an accountability partner. Again, it doesn't even necessarily have to happen this week. Start putting your feelers out. Within the next couple of weeks, having that person inside of real estate, outside of real estate, really doesn't matter, but somebody that you can have that rapport and that accountability with. And then finally, Q&A call, which is going to be our next event, is happening in just a couple days, September 9th. At 12 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. So, just get that time zone where you are. But yeah, 12 o'clock Pacific Standard is going to be consistently when that call is happening. You can sign up in the call section of the course. pardon me, that is at the very end of the course, that last module. You can sign up there. There is a link to do so. You'll also be getting an email probably the day before with a reminder to sign up. And as always, this call, Q&A calls, those will be uploaded usually the day following. So all of this information will show up in the course tomorrow. All right, I think that does it for today. If you have any questions, remember you can always reach me at email, Anna, ANNA, at Vivify Consulting, VIVIFI Consulting.com. You can definitely reach me there, and I will respond as quickly as possible. If you've got any questions, let me know.